Another thing that kind of warned the Trojans of supposedly not accepting the wooden horse is the Trojan priest named Laocoon. However, Laocoon um, was attacked by Laocoon and his sons were attacked by the two serpents coming from the sea, as these serpents were sent by Poseidon. When that happened, Laocoon, the Trojans got the idea that in the event the wooden horse will not be accepted into the city of Troy, Poseidon will also be mad at them. All the more that the Trojans have been pushed into accepting or welcoming the wooden horse. And it did. And the wooden horse managed to enter the city of Troy, and not one among the Trojans had any idea at that point that inside the wooden horse lie the Greek warriors, many of the Greek warriors waiting for the right moment to lay siege or attack the city of Troy from the inside. So night came. It was as if it gave the impression that things were kind of quiet, as there was no Greek soldier in the shores of Troy. It was left with an impression that Troy reached a moment of peace. However, evening came, and when everybody was asleep, one by one, that the Greeks went out of the wooden horse. As the Trojans were not prepared for this sneaky attack, so many of the Trojans have been killed. So many of the Trojans lost their lives. So, even even the chieftains of Troy were caught off guard of this attack, and so many of them died, to the point that the king himself, King Priam, was killed. Who killed King Priam? It was the son of Achilles, the son whose name is Neoptolemus. Neoptolemus, though Achilles spared Priam's life, at that moment that King Priam wanted to get back the dead body of Hector, of course Achilles could have the chance, would have grabbed the chance of killing Priam right there and then. But because he was rather amazed of how the father, King Priam, was so determined to get the dead body of Hector, he respected the decision of King Priam at the time. So King Priam was spared by Achilles. However, King Achilles' son Neoptolemus did not spare King Priam. So King Priam was eventually killed. Among the Trojans, who was among the Trojan generals who was able to escape, was the name of Aeneas, or not, sorry, I'm not among. Only one among the Trojan leaders was able to escape that battle, and it is Aeneas. As Aeneas was protected by Aphrodite, Aphrodite being the mother of Aeneas himself. How did it go? As Aeneas was about to be attacked, there came Aphrodite to rescue him, who appeared in front of him, and then Aeneas wanted to also save his wife, father, and son. Unfortunately, he was not able to successfully do this. He lost his wife in this attack. His wife's name is Creusa. I'll try to put in the name in the chat box. That's the name of the wife of Aeneas. His father, whose name is Anchises, and his son, whose name is Ascanius, were spared from this horrible attack. So Creusa died, the wife died, and Anchises and Ascanius survived together with Aeneas, as they were also as altogether the three of them were saved by Aphrodite. What about Helen? What happened to Helen? Aphrodite helped Helen. Aphrodite brought Helen took her back to Menelaus, and Menelaus welcomed her, gladly welcomed her back, and then they all, together with Menelaus, she was able to make her way back to Greece. So if you think about it again, the person who wanted to have Helen, Paris, is now dead. The father of Paris is dead. The brother of Paris, Hector, is also dead. it's also safe to assume that Deiphobus is also dead, as well as his other brother Helenus is now also gone. Because eventually, at the time that the battle has, at the time that the killing has been over, what were left were just captive women, a band of helpless captive women. Included in these women are the queen Hecuba and the wife of Hector, Andromache, who at that point was holding with her their son named Astyanax. At that time, Andromache thought of at least hopefully sparing, that the Greeks would at least hopefully spare the life of Astyanax. However, her son was also going to be killed. Even if it's still an infant, her son was still going to be killed. And her son was actually thrown off from the wall of Troy. So you can just imagine that an infant thrown up from that height would never survive, would not survive at all. But before the baby was thrown off from the walls of Troy, so the last sacrifice for Troy is the death of Astyanax. Before Astyanax died, the daughter of Hecuba named Polyxena was also killed on the grave of Achilles. So you have Polyxena first, who was killed. Then next to Polyxena was Astyanax. The death of Astyanax marked the last sacrifice of Troy. And that more or less is also tantamount to the fall of Troy. All women have been held captive, ready to be subjected to slavery. Hecuba, Andromache, they've been subjected to being captives. Creusa, by the way, is also the daughter of King Priam and Hecuba. So, as of today, the names of the children of Priam and Hecuba are Hector, Deiphobus, Helenus, Paris, Cassandra, Polyxena, and Creusa. And that concludes the fall of Troy. Troy has now been ruined. Troy has now fallen. By the way, questions probably would be, does Troy really exist? Or is it just a matter of a story? This came to be debated years and years back. However, just recently, in the recent years, proofs and documentations have been provided that the city of Troy actually exists. And now, in the present time, the city of Troy is located at the northwest coast of Turkey. So it really exists as a place. It's found at the northwest coast of Turkey. In fact, it's now known as Hisarlik. The name of the city now, or of the place now, is Hisarlik. I'm typing the name in the chat box. That's the spelling of the modern name of the city of Troy, Hisarlik. So other than perhaps looking at it being a pure mythological story, there might really be some touch of historical account found in this war, found in this Trojan War, because documentations have shown that there are really weapons, battle weapons, armors found in Hisarlik, and these could be dated to the time in the lives to the times of Menelaus and Agamemnon. So it's more or less proven now that Troy did exist. Now we go to the module. Let's check the answers that you have placed in the module. We begin with FT1, question number 1. Who is considered as the evil goddess of discord? The name is Eris. E-R-I-S. Let's be clear with the pronunciation. It's Eris, not Aris. It's Eris. Question number 2. What is the name of the king who was married to Thetis? You have Peleus. Peleus, King Peleus. What is the name of the mountain where the young prince was found by the three goddesses? You have Mount Ida, or if you wish, you can pronounce it as Mount Ida. What is the name of the prince whose judgment was used as basis to resolve the conflict among the three goddesses? His name is Paris. During the Trojan War, who was considered as the fairest woman in the world? You have the woman that could launch, whose face could launch 1,000 ships. The name is Helen. During the Trojan War, who was the king of Sparta? The king of Sparta is Menelaus. What is the name of the brother of the king of Sparta? So Menelaus' brother is named Agamemnon. Agamemnon. What is the name of the soothsayer who told the Greeks that in order to appease Artemis, they need to sacrifice a human being? The name of that soothsayer is Calchas. Calchas. What is the name of the eldest daughter of the commander-in-chief of the Greeks and was then sacrificed to appease Artemis? The eldest daughter of Agamemnon is Iphigenia. 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 Next question. What is the name of the first Greek who died when they landed ashore upon reaching the mouth of one of the rivers of Troy? You have the name of Protesilaeus. Calchas Neil is for number 8. The first Greek who died is Protesilaeus. Who is the king of Troy during that period? You have the name of King Priam. Yes, Neil, that's the spelling, Neil, with a capital letter C. The first letter should be capitalized. For number 4, it's Paris. We go to the next number. What is the name of the woman who turned out to be the reason for the quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon, a quarrel which led to the victory of the Trojans for 9 years? This woman's name is Chryseis, the daughter of Chryses. Who devised the plan of creating a Trojan horse? You have Odysseus. Who is the cousin of Achilles? Patroclus. And then what is the name of Priam's daughter? There are so many daughters here that you could have named. What name did you type in? Cassandra? You could have also typed in the name of Polyxena. The name of Polyxena can also be considered as an answer. You also have the name of the one that has just been mentioned now, Creusa, the wife of Aeneas. So you have these 15 questions in FT2. Who was Paris and what situation led to the judgment of Paris? I'd like to get the answer from John Christian Buntag. Question number 1, FT2, John, go.
Paris is the Prince of Troy.
And there's a follow-up there.
And
What
I don't
led
have.
to the judgment of Paris?
I don't know, sir.
Where have you been all this time, John?
This one.
What are you? Of course, I'm referring to that. What situation led to the judgment of Paris? For the first part of the question on who Paris is, of course, your answers may be like, Paris is a prince of Troy. Paris is the man who was sent away to Mount Ida, tending to the flock of Priam in order to. John, what are you doing?
Sir?
What was that sound?
Huh?
What's the answer to the second part of the question, John?
He needed to choose one of the 3 goddess.
He says. Okay, so you can trace it back to the feast. You can actually trace it back to the feast or banquet celebrated in the wedding of Peleus, and Thetis, to where Eris, the goddess of discord, yes, that's a spelling, Lorraine, of Polyxena, Polyxena. You can trace the answer to Eris being not invited to the wedding feast of Peleus and Thetis. As she was not invited, she felt that it was just already enough, and then ano, she could not take it anymore, and so she barged into the party and threw in a golden apple with the words, for the fairest. And three goddesses wanted to take the apple for herself, and these goddesses were Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera. Zeus, though, could not choose for them and to determine who among the three is the fairest. So these three were sent by Zeus instead to approach Paris, and that led to the judgment of Paris. What prophecy had been given to Paris's father about his son? And why was Paris working as a shepherd instead of living as a prince? Okay, I think I've mentioned that already. The prophecy that is that he is supposed to be the reason of the fall of Troy. It could be that simple. It was already prophesied that Paris is going to be the cause of the ruin and fall of Troy. And it happened. It did. Number 5, FT1. Yes, the answer is Helen. How did the goddesses ask Paris to choose among them? What choice did he make? So to answer number 3, you will look into what each goddess provided as a bribe. Or the idea here is each goddess bribed Paris. And then the bribes are the following. For Hera, she promised Paris to make him the ruler of Europe and Asia. For Athena, the promise was to help the Trojans lay waste or attack or defeat the Greeks, or to even lay the Greek nation in ruins. That's the promise provided by Athena. And for Aphrodite, the promise that she gave Paris was for him to have the fairest woman in the world. And what choice Paris took was the one offered by Aphrodite. How did Odysseus plan to avoid going to Troy, and how did his plan work out? So we can trace this to that part of the story where Odysseus acted like a madman, pretended to be a madman. But then Menelaus sent one of his men to put his son in front of the plow. But Odysseus would not want to kill his own son. If he were really a madman, let's give it 2 points in every number, Alex. If he were really a madman, then it would not matter to him if the boy died in front of as if that boy would be hit by overrun by the plow. To keep his son safe, he had to stop pretending. He had to stop pretending that he is a mad person. So that told that messenger of Menelaus that there's nothing wrong with Odysseus. Why did Achilles' mother plan to keep him from going to Troy? How did her plan work out? In simple words, Achilles' mother, Thetis, wanted to keep Achilles from going to Troy because it's long been foretold already that Achilles is bound to die when he joins the battle for Troy, the battle against Troy. Why was Iphigenia killed? What effects did her death have? Iphigenia was killed because it is an attempt to appease Artemis, as how it was foretold by the soothsayer Calchas. Artemis was enraged by the death of one of her creatures in the wild, the hare. The Greeks killed a hare, and knowing Artemis to be the protector of wildlife, she did not like what happened. And again, like what Calchas said, to appease Artemis, one royal maiden had to be sacrificed. And that royal maiden was the eldest daughter of Agamemnon, who in this case is Iphigenia. Identify Hecuba, Hector, and Andromache. So Hecuba is the wife of Priam. Hector is the prince of Troy, and then Andromache is the wife of Hector. What led to Achilles? Sorry, what led Achilles to re-enter the battle? It was the death of Patroclus. That's simple. When Patroclus died, Achilles eventually got over his feeling of being dishonored, got over his feeling of pride because someone dear to him was killed in battle. Who was it who informed Achilles that Patroclus died? But what's the name of that person who informed Achilles that Patroclus died? I'd like to ask Lorraine. There's so many names already in your copy, no, in your notes, no.
I don't know, sir. I'm sorry.
The name
There's a lot of
begins with the
names
letter
I don't
A.
remember.
Not Ajax, correct, Rain. It's Antilochus. Antilochus being the son of, who's the father of Antilochus? The oldest, considered as the wisest chieftain among the Greeks. You have Nestor. Let's proceed. How did Achilles dishonor Hector after Hector's death? It's that simple gesture of strapping him onto his chariot, and the chariot going around the city of Troy, dragging the dead body of Hector. That's so much of a dishonor. Just imagine it. The hero, the supposed hero of the city of Troy, now dead, is being dragged around the city. That's so much dishonoring, which the gods and goddesses of Olympus did not like, except for Poseidon, Hera, and Athena. Who killed Achilles and how? Achilles was killed by Paris. While Achilles was having his last battle with Andromache, the wife of Hector. Yes, Chelsea. While Achilles was having his final battle with the final battle of his life with Prince Memnon, the battle pushed him near the Seian gates, and on these gates, Paris unleashed an arrow, and that arrow was guided by Apollo. And that arrow managed to hit one part of the body of Achilles that was not submerged on the river Styx. And that part is his heel. His heel turned out to be his weakness. How did Paris die? Again, the Trojans cared less about the death of Paris. The death, if you look at the words of Edith Hamilton, it's really stated here, Troy did not fall because Paris was dead. He was indeed no great loss. So it's his life was seen to be insignificant compared to the other princesses and princess of Troy. How was he killed? He was killed by let's look at what was used. He was killed with arrows using a bow and arrow. He was killed by Philoctetes, Prince Philoctetes. What was the Palladium? Why did the Greeks want it? How did they manage to capture it? The Palladium is the most sacred image the Trojans have of Pallas Athena. Why did the Greeks want it? Because they believe that the Trojans have remained standing and protected because the Palladium is that item that's doing the protection over the city. They assumed that by taking the Palladium, the city of Troy can fall or will eventually fall. How did they manage to capture it? Capturing it was with the work of two great Greeks. You have the names of Odysseus and Diomedes. Odysseus assisted Diomedes, and it was really Diomedes himself who captured the Palladium. Next. What plan did Odysseus devise to conquer Troy once and for all? It's the plan using a wooden horse, or the creation of the Trojan horse. What became of Prince Aeneas of Troy and his family? Prince Aeneas was able to escape only though together with his son and father, not with a wife. What became of Helen of Troy? Helen was given back to Menelaus through the help of Aphrodite, where she was gladly welcomed back by the king of Greece. And then, together with Menelaus, she made her way back to Greece. Questions? It's the coverage is quite long, I should say. This is, I think, one good reason why you can just imagine that your major exam is composed of 5 pages. Not 5 papers, not 5 papers, people, 5 pages. And for the first part, for test 1, there are 100 multiple choice items. And then there are identification items. And essay questions followed, the second part of the test. The funny thing that I really tried, in terms of the number of essay questions, many, nani. And then in terms of the identification questions, this is what I really tried to do. I really tried to do something for the essay, for the identification questions. I tried my best that the answer to each identification question cannot be found in any of the multiple choice items. So like, what's the answer of number 3 in test 2? Wait, I think this answer is found in letter B of test 1, number 4, but it's not actually there. Anyway, you know my exam to be very easy. Any questions regarding the story of the Trojan War? By the way, let's also meet at an agreement for the ST and for the QE. The spelling, in case for especially for identification items, it's good for the multiple choice because the words are already there. For the identification items, the spelling of the names that we're going to follow will come from the work of Edith Hamilton, so that we are going to arrive at a common understanding of how names, places should be spelled. Again, while this is also recorded, I'm announcing it to everybody. The names, the spelling of names, places, whatever, will be based from the work of Edith Hamilton. Besides, a copy of this file has already been sent to you back in August. So you'll just have to, if you want to also get a copy of it again, just send me a private message and then I can give you a copy so that you will not have to back read for several conversations just to find a copy that was sent back in August. Questions?